What's up guys, I'm randomfrankp, and today I'll be showcasing my brand new peripheral setup that I'll be using heading into the new year. You know, as a tech YouTuber, I get a lot of different gear and stuff in to check out for the channel. This is gonna be the main tech that I'll be using over at my setup behind me for all of the gaming and editing that powers the channel. And I'm really pumped with the setup and how it came out and how it all ties together, starting with my new keyboard, the Spectacle 80 from Stylo Studio. So to show you how this came to life, if you've been watching the channel lately, you'll know what's up. I wanted to go with the Iquinix Moonstone turbo switches to kick off the build. These are made from a self-lubricating POC material and have a 1mm actuation distance to their 3.1mm travel, so they'll be definitely good for gaming in that sense, but the feel and the sound profile here are super smooth and thocky. The Spectacle 80 does have the option to have a solder or a hot swap PCB. My unit does require soldering the switches, so typically I'll place about 10 switches around the board once the PCB and plate are assembled with the stabilizers, so I have a good starting point of having the four corners and the top and bottom of the board already soldered down to give it some stability. It's just easier to do it this way so the rest of the switches aren't popping out of the PCB as you go. Soldering obviously takes a bit more time and patience versus just popping them in and out with a hot swap board, but it's nice to mentally zone out and listen to some music to get it all done. I haven't soldered in a long time either, so don't kill me for my blobs. And this really is my first custom build like this in nearly 2 years. So if you want to see more custom builds again on the channel like we did all of 2020 and 2021, drop a thumbs up on the video. This video today obviously isn't a full detailed build, just a quick little snippet of the new board. Now this also isn't gasket mounted, nor is it tray mounted. It's actually top plate mounted. So you can see the top frame goes in between the aluminum top plate and the PCB, which gets like sandwich mounted underneath the bottom of the board. In theory, similar to gasket mounting, but without the pour-on strips, and it's less bouncy overall. I did add some custom dampening foam inside as well, just to add to the sound profile in the end. Now, visually, I was pretty torn on what keycaps to use with this. Originally, I was thinking of using the GMK Aurora Polaris, but KBD Fans has these PBT Fans neon keycaps that I've had. They're a triple shot translucent set that I've been wanting to use on a non-RGB build. The color theme is perfect as well with their additional color kits. It has these Japanese sub-legends as well, which I always think looks dope. So I figured I'd go with them here, and I'm happy I did. Because not only do I dig the contrast of the triple shot translucent sort of injection versus the all solid frame on our board, but the sound of these is a lot deeper as well. And just like that, after about 2 hours of planning, soldering, and assembling, our Spectacle 80 is complete and brought to life. It's simple with no RGB, has these edges all along that are nice and rounded off. It kind of has this floating design as well with like an elevated backside. They said on their site it's actually inspired by the elegance of butterflies. And that's definitely apparent with the weight underneath. When you look at it as a whole, definitely makes a lot more sense with all the curves to its uniform design. This board marks a first for me in a lot of different areas. Not only is it a non-pre-built gaming keyboard like I've been using on the channel since forever, but also, like I said, we have no RGB, so I did want to spice it up a little bit visually with some artisan keycaps from Archetype. I added 3 to the top right row to take up the print, screen, and pause key, and again, just a little touch of personalization. So since it's the first custom keyboard that I'll be using full time, I did want to put a little bit more love into it, you know? So that's why I'm really happy with the way it came out, because I wanted to tie together with my setup and my overall channel aesthetic, and I love the way it looks here. The Spectacle 80 is a really nice looking keyboard. Now, you guys also know that I constantly gush over macro pads, so I finally wanted to add one of these to my setup to use full time, and it is hands down one of my all-time favorites. From Grid, we have their Grid 100 macro pad, which is one of the most unique and custom macro pads I've ever seen and used. Shout out to them for creating something like this because it really is a game changer at the setup. And you'll remember Grid from when I built my first ever custom keyboard on the channel, the Grid 600. That's what really got me to the hobby back in 2019. Now what's really cool about this is the fact that you can buy different modules for the macro pad to tailor this to you and your setup's needs. So stock, as you can see, there are 10 keys that can be programmed to be whatever you want, obviously, but you can pop those out and add other modules. Everything inside mounts into place on their headers, and for those key modules, they're essentially gasket mounted by these ribbon cables. So the top and the bottom of the piece gets mounted down, but the keys are just kind of floating into place. It's such a cool alternative to other macro pads I've used, and it makes swapping these modules fun. Speaking of which, I'll be adding 2 modules, one on each side. One is an encoder, and the other is a joystick. Again, you can see the assembly here. It's as simple as it looks. It's just like Legos. These new modules are the width of 2 of the key modules, so they mount in the same spot, and once screwed down into place, you have a completely different animal than the 10 key macro pad that we started out with. For some extra customization, visually, they don't skimp out. Not only is the macro pad available in different colors and finishes, but the dial and the joystick have these removable tops, so you can change the colors and the design of the topper from a flat design or their tessellated angular ones, matching their design language from the grid's own peak modules for their keyboard accent pieces if you remember that. So that's exactly what I wanted to do with this. Swap the black toppers with their pine colored ones, because it's really close to the colored accents in our keycap set on the Spectacle 80 as it is, so I like tying this all together visually. And since I couldn't just be content and needed to be extra, the clear caps weren't working for me with this configuration. So again, to match the aesthetic of our Spectacle 80, I used black transparent keys instead to be more of a match. And making up for our lack of RGB on the board, you knew we had to compensate it for it somehow, right? Boom! The dial and the joystick have their own RGB ring, each key is backlit, and you have an RGB strip embedded on the top because why not? You can change all the lighting and stuff up, by the way, if you want it to be just static colors. But just like that, we have a crazy macro pad to add to the setup that we can change and evolve as we need over time. So if I wanted this to be, all 10 keys, I could add them back. If I want just the volume dial instead of the joystick, I could swap them out. It's a fun little build that I absolutely love. It's all configurable in Vile, so the joystick can be programmed to act as a D-pad or even like mouse movements for using this in-game. Stuff like 3D modeling can take advantage of a joystick. We'll see how often I actually use a joystick over time, but I had that freedom obviously to customize it and make this whatever I want. So the Grid 100, definitely one of the cooler configurations that I've ever seen when it comes to a macro pad, and really highlights and showcases, I think, the best of the custom keyboard community and all that it's capable of in such a small, compact footprint with so much possibilities. So a big shout out to them because this is so unique and fun. Absolutely love this. Now, another big piece of the peripheral is obviously gonna be the mouse. So starting off the new year, this is one of the things that's most likely to change over the next few months, if I'm being honest. But I've been rocking with the new Pulsar X2H since it released, and I've been loving this. Now the difference with this versus the original X2 is the hump on the back, H standing for hump, and I didn't think it would make a huge difference, but it really feels night and day versus the original model. The narrow waist and the top hump to its symmetrical design really feels great for claw or palm claw grip. And coming in at 54 or 52 grams for the mini model, I have the size 2, it's still super light. Here you can see where that top hump differs from that last model, and this honestly made the original X2 just feel obsolete, especially with the internal upgrades we have. Pulsar went optical inside for their switches that feel super snappy. It is still paired with their 3395 sensor, but it's now capable of 4K Hertz polling rate. Definitely some nice internal upgrades to add to the overall package. Now where I've added my touch to this is by giving the top half of the paddles this green and blue chameleon paint fade. And the entire top shell is now glossy, so it's super grippy. I've done this in the past on a few of my mice that I've used, and I think it looks cool, personally. Plus it matches the other gear for my setup, and this turquoise emerald color shifting paint really adds a unique spin to deck out the mouse. Depending on the angle you look at it, it's either green or blue. I really dig it. Now I'm no Nacho Customs, it was a quick little job that I did down here in the studio bathroom, but I think the end result looks really cool and it feels great as well. That polished finish adds a nice grip to it without it being like sticky or tacky. And again, that color shifting paint just looks really unique and it matches to the keyboard and the macro pad. The emerald turquoise paint is from Testers. I got a bunch of these. Like I said, I did this paint job to a few different mice over the years and always thinks it looks cool. So really digging it. Now we'll do a sound test of the keyboard as we round out those first 3 new peripherals. What do you guys think? I mean, I think they just sound so deep and thocky, and this is all stock. These Moonstone turbo switches are self-lubricating, so as you saw during the beginning, like I didn't self-lube these or anything. These are all stock from the factory. A pack of 100 is under 50 bucks. They are such a nice feeling and sounding linear switch. And then again, them being the turbo model with them having a faster actuation, it makes it great for gaming. So that's why I wanted to add these to the new build to use over at my setup. I'm not in love with the spacebar. I kind of want to tune that going forward, but I think it sounds awesome. Some of my all-time favorite switches here now in my new main keyboard. Now for audio. This is one thing that I've probably been using the longest out of all the stuff so far. It's the Sennheiser HD 660S2 headphones. A nice audiophile open back pair. I've been using these probably since the summer, I'd say. And again, I always love using open back headphones for a few reasons. You know, first off, it still lets me hear what's going on if I need to hear someone at the doorbell or if my wife needs me upstairs. But also for gaming, open back completely opens the soundstage to just get you more immersed. You've probably heard me say this 100 times verbatim on the channel, but when you're using open back for gaming, it puts you literally in the middle of the battlefield versus having just, you know, a driver on each side. Everything now is much more opened up, where it gives you that immersive experience, putting you in the middle of the action in the heat of the moment. It's opening up that sound stage. It's letting you have a more aware world around you. And that's what's really different versus closed back. And since I've used open back, I can't go back for gaming. Now these are a bit on the pricier side versus models out there like the 6XX or the 58X Jubilee. And those are admittedly more fun sounding headphones, right? But the reason I like these is because they are a bit more neutral. And why that benefits me over at my setup, where I do both gaming and all the editing for the channel, is when I'm mixing audio and editing for my videos. Having that more neutral sound profile is gonna benefit me. You know, they're not gonna be as, you know, one-to-one for like professional studio monitoring headphones, but a nice neutral sound profile on these is gonna give me a more accurate representation of the audio that I'm mixing and editing. And of course, if I want to, you know, spice it up a bit when it comes to the sound profile, I can just go into SteelSeries Sonar, which is what I use to EQ my games, and then, you know, make it a bit more fun if I want. You know, add more punch to the bass and a bit more clarity in that high end, and bring them more to life for gaming. And then when I'm editing, turn all the EQs off. Admittedly, the one thing that I do want to upgrade going forward that I haven't really talked about yet is my mouse pad. I've been bouncing around over the last few months. I've used the Razer Strider for forever. I've been recently using the X-Ray Pad Equate that I've been loving, which is a lot more of a control pad. I've been using our novel keys and randomfrankp pad. So I do want to find a new staple going forward that I could use over at the setup. But yeah, guys, that'll be my peripheral showcase for 2024 as we head into the new year. Hope you all enjoyed. If you want to check any of this out, I'll have them all listed for you guys in the description down below. If you like this video, give it a big thumbs up to show your support. Feel free to follow me on Twitter at randomfrankp. And last, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Hope you enjoyed this one. Have a good day.